Hi everyone, welcome to Helps YouTube Live today, Thursday, February 5th, 2025. Good to have you here. My name's Eric, attorney now for 47 years. Founder of Helps is a national law firm. What we do is we represent seniors and disabled persons to stop debt collector harassment with the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. Part of that law provides if you're represented by an attorney, debt collectors can't communicate with you anymore. They got to contact the attorney, not you. And that's what we do. People find out about us, we ask them some questions, and they call us 2, 3, 4, 5 times. We enroll you over the phone. We don't turn anyone away. The cost is minimal, can be free in certain instances. Give us the creditors you want to pay. We send them what's called a cease and desist letter, and they leave you alone. The magic about Helps is we represent you ongoing. It's not just one time, literally for the rest of your life. So you don't have to deal with these collectors again. If you got sued, get us a copy of the lawsuit. We're going to send a letter to the attorney who sued you. We're going to let them know your agreement is protected. We're going to call you on the phone and explain why you don't need to go to court, what you need to do, why your assets are protected. We're going to write a letter to the attorney, let them know that your assets are protected, explain to you how your bank account is protected. Okay? So that's what we do. Our most common thing we hear is, Helps brought peace back to my life. So if you have a question, you can put it in the chat, and I'll try to address it there. There's a question from Marty that I can't really quite understand, but I'm going to guess it. It says, Eric, if I don't call them, they're going to take it. They're going to do this further. Do I need to call them? Okay, so if you've made arrangements to make a debt, and now you're learning, maybe for the first time, that my Social Security is protected, I really don't need to pay this debt. You can stop paying the debt. Okay. Now, what if they're taken out automatically out of your bank account? Well, what you can do is, if it's a regular credit card, then you just get on the internet or get on their webpage and cancel it, or call them on the phone and cancel it. They're used to being canceled all the time. But if it's a debt collector or some high interest outfit, what you may need to do is contact your bank and have them put a stop payment on that automatic payment that's going out. And you can do that in writing. A lot of times you can do it over the phone. We have an email that explains how that's done. Call us, we can send you that and tell you how to do that. Now, once in a while, I'll tell people if it's going to come out tomorrow, you don't have enough time to get it stopped, or 2 or 3 days, pull all your money out of your account. That way, there's not enough money to pay it. Okay, because you don't need to pay it. Just because you made an arrangement to pay doesn't mean you have to pay it. So you can stop paying. Hope that answers your question, Marty. If not, just ask it again. I'll be able to answer it. Turn up my volume here. My volume, I think, is up. Oh, sorry about that. It helps to have the headset on. Thank you. I've got this little thing, but I don't think I have it turned on. So anyway, now you should be able to hear me really clear. Okay, good. Thanks for helping me out here. So this person contacts us from Louisiana, good old Louisiana. They said, I get $830 a month in Social Security and have been having a hard time. My electric bill went up, and now I can't pay my credit card payments. And I feel so upset because I know I did it to myself, living off them, really. Well, okay. If you're having a hard time paying the debt and you realize you can't pay it anymore, you don't need to feel guilty. It's just life. $830 a month is a very small amount. You could make a lot more than that and still have very difficulty paying the credit card debt. The credit card company, when you signed up for them, they knew that there was a chance that you wouldn't be able to pay the debt. That's why that's one of the reasons they charge the interest they charge. They know they know ahead of time that a certain percentage of creditors, of people that they owe money to, that owe money to them, aren't going to be able to pay them. Therefore, that's one reason they factor in their interest rates. They're still making record profits. Okay, so you don't need to feel guilty. You would pay it if you could afford to pay it, but you simply can't pay it. And I says, I can't pay my credit card debt. I feel so upset because I know I did it to myself. Well, a lot of people, they struggle. They keep making the payments. They try to do the best they can. And finally, they come to the point where they realize they just can't do it anymore. So you have a lot of company. A lot of people are in the same boat and have that same problem. So try not to, don't worry about it. We have emails that talk about guilt and debt that we're happy to send to people. Okay. Now, now you can hear me. Okay. So I'm going to say, Eric, you say that Social Security, VA, SSI, SDI is protected. Can you tell us what government pensions that are not covered by all by the twice amount? Well, we're talking any federal benefit, any federal pension. That's the United States Postal Service, uh, of course, the VA. If you're a federal worker, Office of Personnel Management pension. Railroad worker is a federal pension from the federal government. But twice the amount deposited in your bank account is protected, if it's from a federal source, protected automatically from garnishment. Uh, Twice the amount you get each month, regardless of what funds are in there or where they came from. Okay? Now, if you got a pension from some other source, it's still protected. Okay? They can't garnish the pension. Okay? The only question is, what about when it's deposited into your bank account? Well, if there's federal monies going in there, twice the federal amount is protected, even if there's other monies in there that came from another source. So if you got 2,000 in Social Security, 4,000 in the bank account is protected automatically. Now, if you happen to have more than that in there, or you didn't have any federal funds going in there, and you did get a pension, and they did happen to they would have to sue you, have a judgment, know where you're banking. All that's all pretty unlikely, but if they did, and there was a garnishment, then you could file what's called a challenge to garnishment or claim of exemption to get and tell the court where the money came from. The court will order that the money be released. You talk to us, we can go talk about that. So Marty says, Foothill Solutions called me, said if they don't hear from me, they're going to bring my, they're going to pursue the matter. I didn't hear from what you're saying. I'm going to be okay. Well, yeah, if your income is Social Security or pension, Marty, your income is protected. Remember, they can't take it. Uh, if you're a helps client, you're going to want to call us, and we're going to send a letter to this company, let him know that your income's protected. It's called a cease and desist letter, and they're not going to be able to call you anymore. They're going to have to communicate with us and not you. So, no, I don't want you to worry about this. You don't need to talk to them either. Sometimes, the title to the video today is something like, why don't why don't people tell me that my income is protected? Why don't they tell me what my rights are? Well, the debt collectors don't have to do that. Okay, and these debt management, debt settlement companies, with few exceptions, they don't do it. There are a few exceptions, more all the time, as people find out about helps, and they refer people to us. But even organizations like the National Council on Aging, on their articles, they don't tell seniors, that have debt problems that their Social Security is protected. They don't talk about it. Or that there's a Fair Debt Collection Practices Act to stop creditors from bothering them. Instead, they collect $50 million from the government to supposedly help seniors. and yet never tell them. And even though they're a nonprofit and their mission is to help seniors, especially those that are, you know, financially vulnerable or suffering financially, who are having problems. And half of seniors are having these financial problems, yet they don't tell them. So, and then, AARP, American Association of Retired Persons, it's a great organization, but they pretty much service seniors that have money, not the 50% that don't. So they may do token service to help seniors that are poor. They don't give them the right information because a lot of them, they don't have to give them the right information. But you're going to hear the right information here from ELPS. And you're right. If you're being threatened with a lawsuit, scare tactics. What if it gets sued by someone for a tort? You might say, well, Eric, what's a tort? Okay, it sounds kind of official. Um, okay, a tort is like if you're in an automobile accident and you hurt someone, or if you're in a fist fight with someone and you hurt them and they decided to sue you for damages, not a criminal, it's a tort. Um, there's a lot of, you know, it's other than a contract, pretty much. But yeah, it doesn't matter. Your income is protected. Someone got a judgment against you for a tortious action on your part, where you were at fault for doing something, and they got sued you and got a judgment, and you didn't have enough insurance, or you didn't have insurance, and they were able to get a judgment. They're not going to be able to touch your Social Security. It's going to be protected. You don't need to worry about it. But you call us if you have a question. Okay, that's what we're here for. Don't want you to worry. So this person writes in, they say, my situation is unique. I do not receive Social Security. I have a job, but I need my income. I'm in my 80s. I need my income to survive. Can you please help? Well, yeah, call us and we'll talk to you about your situation. Let me explain. There's several states that don't allow garnishment of wages. Okay, California, South Carolina, and then quite a few states. Okay, and there's a federal law that protects a minimum of $217.50 net per week in wages in every single state. That's $435 every 2 weeks, about $945 a month. In every state. But then there's some states that protect more than that. See, that law, that federal law that protects 217.50 was passed in 1996, and Congress hasn't revisited it. They pretty much turned it over to the states, and because of that, a lot of states have raised the wage exemption that's protected from garnishment. Okay, California, it's like over $600, and then it goes up whenever the federal minimum wage goes up. And that's not the only state. A lot of states protect a lot more than 217.50 net. But even if it wasn't that the case, um, and you were making more than that, then the creditor would have to sue you, get a judgment. They have to know where you're working. And if that were to ever happen, you can call and talk to us. We can go over your situation, what can be done. But you'll be fine. Shouldn't have a problem. Uh-huh. I listened to some advice that if your elderly credit card collectors won't take you to court. Long story short, I signed up with National Debt Resolution. They also assured me the same. Now I have two. I think you're going to say lawsuits. Well, I never tell people you're not going to be taken to court, but it doesn't matter. You go to court, you're not going to need to go to court. They can get a judgment they can't collect from you. You're judgment proof. So when you signed up with National Debt Resolutions, uh, Tammy, did they tell you that your income was protected, that your Social Security and your pension couldn't be touched, and that you could send a cease and desist letter could be sent to the creditor and they'd have to leave you alone? Now, I'm pretty sure you're going to tell me, no, they never did tell you that. No, the reason they don't tell you that, if they would have told you about your rights, you wouldn't have enrolled with them and they wouldn't be making any money off. That's why they don't tell seniors this. You know, these debt management, even the nonprofit companies don't do it. A few do. Once in a while, you know, hope, hopefully more will over time. They don't tell seniors that their rights are. But you're going to hear the correct information here with helps. We're going to give it to you. Person contacts us from New York and they say, they have 2 court dates, and after I missed the first date for being late, I stopped paying national. Yeah, you don't need to go to court. Okay. I mean, if you enroll in helps, what we do is send a letter to the attorney that filed the lawsuit, letting them know that your income is protected. You're not going to go to court. We also remind them of the protected nature of your bank account. Remember, like I've explained before, twice the amount of your federal benefit deposited in your bank account is protected automatically from garnishment by your bank without you having to do anything. The bank knows that. There's a rule went into effect in 2012 that tells the banks they have to examine where your money came from, where the person's money came from when they see a garnishment. If they got money from a federal source like Social Security, they look at whatever they got within the last 60 days. Twice the amount is protected. Okay? Okay. Person contacts us from New York to say, I'm having a problem with my home. The situation has gotten out of hand. They might try to take my house. I need help. I need some help. A lot of help. It's too much to elaborate here, but I need help. Thank you in advance. Well, call this person. Call us on the phone. There's a number of solutions if you're buying a home and you have this problem. Um, for example, maybe when you learn that you don't have to pay your other debt and then you've got extra money left over, you've got enough money to maintain the house payment and catch up on the missed payments. If you have enough equity in the home, it might be possible for you to get what's called a reverse mortgage. What a reverse mortgage do would pay off your existing mortgage so you no longer have a house payment anymore. Credit is not that big of a factor in getting a reverse mortgage. Okay, so call us if you're having a problem. Now, um, obviously, if you've got a home and you don't have that much equity in it, and you've got a payment that you simply can't afford, even if you didn't have to pay your other debt, then maybe if there's enough equity, maybe selling the home is an answer. Or maybe if there's no equity at all, you're behind on the payment, you couldn't sell for anything. Maybe what we'll tell you is you could choose to live in the home while it's going through foreclosure, and you might be able to stay in the home for a year or two and save up that money to have it to move on. So there's a lot of options you can talk to, and we'll go over it with you. I've been in practice over 4 decades, and the other attorneys that work at Helps, we've done thousands and thousands of bankruptcies. So we know what. Not that you're going to need to file bankruptcy, you shouldn't, but we know how to solve or how to answer your questions and give you the information you need. Figure out what you want to do. Okay. So is 61 years considered elderly? So helps, it doesn't, when a person enrolls in helps, it doesn't matter how old you are, it's just their source of income. If you're getting Social Security disability, that money's protected. I kind of really doubt the National Debt Relief told you that your income was protected. You didn't need to pay the debt. They said they were going to send letters to try to settle with these companies, and you were making a monthly payment to them that you didn't really need to make. I suspect that's the way it was with you, Tammy. But no, we've got Helps has clients in their 50s and 40s. that are getting Social Security. Now, it is true that the vast majority of our clients are elderly and getting Social Security, but not all of them. As long as you're getting any form of Social Security or a pension or some type of disability payment, that money is protected by state and federal laws and can't be taken. Okay? So this person made a comment on one of our videos, or a video that where we did with someone else, and they said, I'm 64 and have had a kidney transplant and now have congestive heart failure, being sued by a student loan department company. What are my rights? Well, okay, if you're 64 and you had a kidney transplant, congestive heart failure, your income is Social Security or pension. It's protected. Um, Now, if you've been sued, that means it's a private student loan that sued you, which means if they get a judgment, they cannot take any of your money. Now, a public student loan, a government insured student loan, they don't sue. They don't file lawsuits. They theoretically can, but they don't. What they used to do was send a letter saying they were going to offset 15% of your Social Security. But that's only if it's a federal insured student loan, not a private student loan. Okay? But right now, the government isn't, and since about 2018, isn't setting off any money from Social Security to pay a public student loan. They're not doing that. They were going to start last May, and then 30 days later, the Department of Education announced that no, we're not going to do it. So it's just kind of hanging out there in limbo. Now, if they ever did say they were going to start up, there'll be a program in place called um, income-based repayment plan, where you could choose to pay the student loan based on your income. And for a lot of seniors, the amount they'll be required to pay will be $0 per month. Okay? Should I file for bankruptcy instead? Well, I don't think you could afford to file bankruptcy, and you don't need to, because no one can touch your income. You're judgment proof. You're not going to go if you don't go. You're not going to get arrested. Like Turbo said, it's a civil matter. It's not criminal. No. Um, you can call us on the phone and talk to one of our paralegals, one of the attorneys that helps, 855-435-7787. We'll go over your situation. Okay? But you have nothing to worry about. So I started helps in 2012. Before that, I had a large bankruptcy firm, which is still in existence, really big. And but seniors would come into me to file bankruptcy, and I tell them you don't need to file bankruptcy, and I explain to them why. Um, but I knew when I sent them home that creditors could still call them on the phone, and so helps was started so that seniors that didn't need to file bankruptcy, didn't have to file bankruptcy, couldn't afford to file bankruptcy, could get some help so they wouldn't have to deal with collectors anymore, and they could always have someone to call if they were worried or scared about their situation. So that's what helps is here for. Our main mission is to protect seniors from collector harassment, because under the federal law called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, one provision is if you're represented by an attorney, collectors have to leave you alone. So you give us the creditors you owe money to, we send them a cease and desist letter, they leave you alone. You give us a copy of the lawsuit, we contact the attorney who sued you, let them know you're not going to pay it, you're not going to go to court, you don't need to worry about it. And then the magic about helps is, we represent you ongoing, literally for the rest of your life, so you don't have to deal with these collectors again. Uh, but the court summons says they may put a warrant out on me. How can they lie? Well, okay. I don't know what you're looking at, but if they've already sued you and they've already got a judgment in the past, and if they've filed some other paperwork asking you to come into court to answer some questions after they've already got a judgment, that could be called what's called a debtor's exam, or it might have another name in another state, but usually it's a debtor's exam. In those kind of situations, yeah, you're going to, something needs to be done, because if you don't go, then they could ask you to come in again. If you don't go a second time, then they could issue a warrant for your arrest. People get scared about thinking about that. It's not the practice of creditors to go that far. But, when one of our helps clients get a debtor's exam notice, we contact the attorney who filed it and said, tell them, hey, do you really want the person to come in? Here's their proof that their income is Social Security is protected. Kind of a waste of your time to go in when they're going to show you their income is protected. You're not going to get anything from them, and they must always, agree to forgive it and not pursue the matter. So you can call and talk to us, and we'll go over it. So, Eric, when you say a judgment proof, do you mean that they can get a judgment against you, but they can't go further with that judgment? It means they can't collect based on the judgment. Nothing they could take from you. They could file a writ of garnishment. They can't take your income. Now, depending on state law, they may be able to ask you some questions. Like Florida has what's called a fact information sheet. If they get a judgment, they try to ask you some couple dozen questions, maybe 6 or 7 will apply to you. The rest they don't apply. But essentially, the judgment is meaningless. They can't collect from you. But we'll be glad to go over that with you, Tammy. Person contacts us from California. Okay. This one's a little different. I need help with a civil case, they say. They've already hired an attorney and they've spent a lot of money defending themselves. He says, my wife and me are both on Social Security and retired. We need help. I'm waiting for the police department to come and arrest me with false charges from a private investigator. Report to the court and the DA's office. I'm seeing a therapist now. My wife and I cry a lot. We don't represent people in court, but we'll be glad to talk to this person. It may turn out that they don't have anything to worry about. If they're sued, and their only income is Social Security, even if they're buying a home, California has a homestead exemption is at least a $600,000 or more, depending on the county where you live. They may, one option they may have is not to do anything if they can't afford to hire an attorney and defend themselves. Creditor gets a judgment, they can't collect from them. There's a lot of things that we can talk to them, give them some information that might be helpful. Person contacts us from Florida back in April. Says he's interested in our services. He's interested in rebuilding his credit as well. We have a program called 7 Steps to a 720 Credit Score. After you've been part of Helps for 90 days, you can contact us. We'll send you an email and tells you how to enroll in that program that's free. You can rebuild your credit within a year and a half to 2 years. Your credit is based on your recent credit history. You don't have to pay the old debt to be able to rebuild your credit. It's based on your recent credit history. Wants to know if you can keep a couple credit cards. Yeah, you can. We always ask people that enroll in Helps or interested in it, says, do you have a credit card with a small balance or nothing is owed you still want to keep? If the answer is yes, you can keep that credit card. As long as it's not based on a bank with you and you have another credit card or debt you're not going to pay. So we send them emails on all this stuff, what we do. They didn't get the email, so it looks like they called us the next day and we resent the emails. And then they called us again on December 22nd, just a little over a month ago. And we explained that, yeah, that if they've got automatic withdrawals, they don't need to pay the debt anymore. They can stop those automatic withdrawals. Hold on a second. I had to turn up the heat. I'm getting a little cold. Um, then they called again on February 4th, yesterday, and we called them back, and looks like they enrolled in Helps yesterday. And that's not uncommon. Person calls us a year ago, and then they call us again, and then they finally realize that they need our help. So don't be embarrassed if you have to call us more than 2 or 3 times. It's not unusual. We're happy to talk to you. And you can always look at more of our videos or look at our webpage, look at our other YouTube videos. Okay. So this person contacts us from Arkansas. They're 70 years old and they get Social Security about $2,000 a month. They say they're retired from my job in Missouri because of health issues. I moved back to Arkansas to be near to my children. Can't get a job, he says, because of my age. I've had surgery and some other medical issues, so he has a difficulty walking. He's got a student loan that he says he owes $30,000 on, a car he owes $30,000 on, and credit card debt of $17,000. His only income is Social Security, a little bit under $2,000 a month. And then he gets retirement less than $100 a month. That's after he pays for his Medicare and prescription plan, which he needs because of his medical condition. He says he didn't want to retire until my debt was paid, but my medical problems have become the issue. That's pretty common. What can I do? My credit cards are just about maxed out. I cannot do anything more about it anymore. I'm presently living with one of my kids because even if I was not dead here, rent would generally be $1,000 or more. Would take half his income. And then he called in December a couple more times in December and went over what we did. And he said if he didn't have to pay the credit card debt, he could afford to keep the car. He was ready to sign up with helps. He wanted to try to work it out, but he really couldn't. And so he enrolled with helps. So let's talk about it real quick. The student loan, he doesn't need to worry about it. If he's disabled, if he needed to, he could get the student loan waived. Now he's got a car he owes quite a bit of money on. If he wants to keep making that payment and he can afford it because he's not paying the other debt, that's fine. He can do that. But if he later changes his mind, he can always do that. Let the car go back, surrender it. If they sell it for less than what's owed, which they likely would, they'll send him a notice of deficiency. He sends that to helps. We'll send a cease and desist letter out to the lender, and they're not going to bother him. And then as far as the credit card debt, he doesn't need to pay it anymore. So he'll be fine. He's got nothing to worry about. So SSI is kind of like a Social Security income. It's a it's under the Social Security, but it's almost like a welfare benefit. So one of the requirements is that you have to have a limited amount of income or assets, not more than $2,000 in the bank account. So you got to watch it to keep that your bank doesn't go over that amount. Otherwise, you can be disqualified. So this person this was a comment on one of our videos or a video that we did. Said I'm disabled 60-year-old woman with a student loan balance of $30,000 after 30 years of payments. Now she's got a medical issue. Um, and they've been taking some money out of her income taxes refund. I I attempted to get the student loan forgiveness and no one could give me proper guidance. Well, you contact us, we can send you an email with details on actually how to accomplish that. I'm currently receiving phone calls that there's a claim being filed against me where they're calling my friends as a member and that I'm being located. I will be, but they do not identify who's filing the claim nor the company filing suit. How do I get help identifying the legitimacy of this claim? You call us on the phone. We'll go over your situation with you. You know, if you have any questions when I'm talking and you're saying that doesn't quite answer my specific question, don't hesitate to call us. Okay, we'll be glad to go over this with you. We have answers to your questions. If I get a settlement from a car accident, can a debt collector with a judgment take my settlement? Depends on state law. Most states will protect settlement from a car accident claim. It's kind of personal injury claim from a debt collector being able to take it. Okay. Why? Well, because you're getting the money to pay for you know physical harm and help medical expenses or whatever, and so they protect it. It's almost always protected. I can't think of a state that doesn't protect it. Now, if there was a problem, I mean, if a creditor they'd have to have a judgment. They'd have to know about the claim. They'd have to garnish them at the exact right moment, which isn't going to happen. Okay, I've been doing this 46, 47 years. No, they're not going to. You don't need to worry about it. Okay? And always call and talk to us. We'll go over the facts for your specific state. Person contacts us from Maryland. They get $1,900 in Social Security and $100 in a pension. 73 years old. They have credit card and medical debt they can't afford. We discussed how their income was protected, read them what we did, asked them questions about their situation, and then quoted the fees that would cost for them to enroll in HELPS. This was a month or so ago, and then they called back yesterday and enrolled in HELPS. Thank you. You always make me feel better. Emily says, yeah, well, I'm glad. Because you should feel better. Because, I mean, it's difficult. I mean, it's difficult for me to imagine when I would tell seniors bad news, especially about their income, losing money. About the only bad news I guess a senior could get from HELPS is if, well, I guess one might be that maybe a spouse passed away and part of your income went down significantly. Now you couldn't afford the house payment anymore. So you might be required to, and you couldn't qualify for a reverse mortgage, but you still had enough equity in the home. You might need to sell the home and, downsize now. But as far as worrying about any debt, no, we're not. You're going to get nothing but good news from HELPS. Eric, following income tax this year, no paper checks will be not mailed out, but deposited in an account. Is that money also protected from judgments and creditors taking it? Um, Good question. Uh, well, first off, in order for someone to take your money that's not protected, okay, uh, no one can garnish your your IRS tax refund. Okay, they can't file if someone gets a judgment against you, they can't file paperwork with the IRS to get your refund. They can't do that. Now, a few states allow a creditor to garnish the state Department of Revenue, take a state refund. But as far as the federal refund, they can't garnish it now. But what happens if once it goes into your bank account? Then there's a possibility there could be a problem with it. But first, someone would have to sue you, have a judgment, and they have to know the exact moment when you deposit that check. Because if the check is deposited automatically into your account, they don't send you a paper check. And frankly, I don't know how to do that because there's still quite a few seniors that don't use paper checks. But anyway, assuming that maybe don't have a bank account, whatever. But anyway, let's assuming they deposit in your bank account. I mean, you could pull it out, or you make sure that the balance in there is less than twice the amount of your federal benefits. So if you got $3,000 in Social Security, $6,000 in the bank account is protected automatically. There's ways to protect that. You could always envision a scenario where some money could possibly be at risk. But most of the time, it's almost like getting the stars to align in such a certain way that everything has to be perfect for that thing to happen. Okay? Person contacts us from, well, I don't know. It says, hello, I'm a senior and a veteran, and I would like to say my home. I'm delinquent on it, also collections. I'm not on Social Security, any other government. I'm not retired yet. Well, we'll talk to you. You may not need our help yet, but one nice thing about helps is, I've probably filed 30 or 40,000 bankruptcies before I started help, so I know what the law is and what happens in the real world. And if we can't help you, we'll know where to steer you to send you to get some help. Person gets Social Security, disability, and works part-time. They rent, they're buying a car. Capital One has sued them. And then they called, this was early last fall, and then they called again on November 17th last year. We called them back. Finally, we tried to get them. They called us back. We tried them again on November 18th. Finally, they reached us, or we reached them on November 19th. They called back to talk about bank account protections and tax return money. She keeps money in envelopes in a lockbox to have cash on hand as savings. Well, I don't mind that, but you don't want to keep it in a safe deposit box, because if your bank got garnished, they'll put a hold on the safe deposit box. So don't save cash in a safe deposit box. And the paralegal writes it, says that they went over wage garnishments, which isn't going to be a problem. She doesn't make enough money, or the wage exemptions for her state are more than the federal exemptions. We explain why she didn't need to go to court. And then she called back again on January 12th. She got something from a creditor and she wanted to send it to us and have us explain what it is. Sounds like maybe a judgment. They called a few times in January. Anyway, it looks like they enrolled with helps. One thing they said, are we a month-to-month service? The answer is no, not really. When you enroll at helps, I guess you pay monthly, but after 4 years, there's no fees. But you're our client literally forever, so you don't have to deal with collectors. And you can call us as often as you need to. There's no limits to the amount of calls you can make to helps. So this person writes in, they say, hello, I've been trying to get information like this for a long time, but this video is 4 years old. So has the information changed? Probably not. No. I'm 72 and I only live on 1680 in Social Security check. It's so hard making ends meet these days. I moved to Arkansas 7 months ago and everything here is so expensive. I have no house, no car, no money saved, nothing, and had to stop paying all my 7 credit cards. They have sent me to collections. What should I do? I have no money in the bank account. Should I contact them and tell them all this, or just try and ignore them? I even have to get my food from a food bank. They wouldn't get the money from me, but a friend told me they can put me in jail for this now, so now I'm scared. Don't listen to your friend. You're not going to jail. I'm elderly with bad health. I can't walk anymore. Can anyone tell me what I should do? Well, okay. It's only income Social Security, 1680. He can keep what? Twice that amount, almost $3,400 in the bank account. It's protected from garnishment. Doesn't have to worry about Capital One suing him. If he doesn't want to deal with the creditors, he can enroll in helps. We'll send a cease and desist letter out to him. They're going to stop calling him. Uh, and then he's going to be our client literally ongoing, so he never has to deal with debt collectors again. He uses money for his food, medicine, and what he needs. No, and they're not going to put you in jail. No, you don't need to worry about that. You know, if they file a lawsuit, they get a judgment. That's it. It's your judgment proof. They can't do anything to you. Now, if you get any follow-up paperwork after they get a judgment, you get it to us. We'll explain it to you. We'll go over it with you. That's what we do. So if that's you, if you're worried about this stuff, please call us. We don't want you to worry. Jimmy says, Eric, if I visit your office, will you buy me lunch? You know, we really don't have physical offices that helps. We got employees from all over the country because we don't represent people in court. People enroll over the phone. Uh, I'm living temporarily in New Orleans, although I love it here. I may be living here forever because kind of fallen in love with Louisiana. I'm native born Oregonian, but I've come to love Louisiana. So I don't have a place where you could visit me, Jimmy. Sorry. Yeah, I'm going to go see a parade on Friday night. Wow, I wish I knew about your program before I signed up with National Debt Resolution. Well, we hear that all the time, but you don't need to be, you're not with them anymore. And that's one reason we always ask our clients to share what Helps does with other seniors as appropriate. Sometimes I've told people, I said, if you're talking to someone and the topic comes up about, finances and debt, and all of a sudden, uh, or the high cost of living, there's nothing wrong if a little voice in your mind says, maybe you should talk to this person about Helps. Don't hesitate to do that. That person may need this information. You might change everything for them. So this person writes in and they say, uh, I never understood why no one is responsible for telling you your rights. That seems like gross negligence and should be illegal, even criminal. Uh, yeah, they have to tell, if a guy gets arrested, they have to say you have a right to remain silent. It'd be kind of nice if a debt collector was required to say, you owe a debt, but if you have Social Security or pension, that money is protected. You don't need to use it to pay the debt. That would be a nice law to get passed someday. Heaven, heaven help us if that ever happened, though. It won't, but it'd be nice. Person contacts us from Indiana. They're married. They both receive Social Security, and he gets a couple private pensions. The home is owned free and clear and in his wife's name. They have 2 old cars. He set up a payment plan with his hospital. But they've sent it to collection. That's the only debt he has. But they may have more in the future due to the high cost of living. They called us in January. They wanted some more information. We sent it to them on January 30th. We explained to him how his income was protected, and they enrolled with helps. Another person contacts us from Illinois. They're 68 years old. They get $1,635 in Social Security. She's got a life-ending illness, and she wanted us to send we have a packet we can send to people in the mail. We sent that to her. And we're happy to send our packet, but frankly, you can learn more about helps on the internet than you would from anything we send to people in writing. She has credit card and medical debt. She wanted to know how her income was protected, what we did. She wanted us. She downloaded a copy of a cease and desist letter, but she was having a hard time getting that out. Said she's been served with legal papers and is feeling stressed, especially since she is undergoing chemotherapy. And we explained what we did. She wouldn't need to pay the debt. Looks like she enrolled in help so that we could send letters to the creditors. So she wouldn't have to worry about it anymore. She didn't have to worry about sending out her letters, dealing with the creditors herself. She wouldn't have to go to court or worry about the lawsuit. She got enough on her plate. So if that's you, if you're worried about this stuff, uh, don't hesitate to call us, please. That's what we're here for. Okay? So it looks like it's nearly been an hour. Um, I'm gonna end now. I just want to say this. If you're worried about this kind of thing, if you're struggling financially, you have debt you can't afford to pay, don't hesitate calling us. We'll be glad to go over this with you. There's never any pressure to enroll in helps. Like I said, the cost is minimal or free. Uh, and people that call us, they're relieved. Okay, you don't have to deal with collectors anymore. So don't hesitate to give us a call, 855-435-7787. And I'll be back Monday. Okay, we'll talk about it again. And I want to thank you for all your good questions today. Yeah. Tater says, I've been telling people about helps. They are shocked to learn that their Social Security is protected. I know. Okay, but it is. And your pension. It's protected in your bank account, like we discussed. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you Monday. God bless. Bye.